Hello again, everybody. Welcome back to the Rantin Review Entertainment. We are continuing our coverage of the final season of The Walking Dead, Season 11. This is Episode 11 in Part 2. Whew, lots to cover there, but it is called Rogue Elements. And in this episode, we learned a lot more about the relationship between Eugene and Stephanie. A lot of people have had some suspicions about Stephanie, myself included, but we'll talk about that as we get into the video. First, I want to remind you guys that this being YouTube loves when you hit that like button. So if you like this video or you learned anything from it or you just enjoy watching people talking about The Walking Dead, I'd appreciate it if you hit that like button. And while you're down there, you might as well hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. It helps other people on YouTube who are Walking Dead fans know about this video. So that being said, let's get into the review of Rogue Elements. There are a couple different storylines going on, again, as usual, in The Walking Dead during Season 11. And one of the ones I want to talk about first is this very interesting relationship that we saw hinted at in the last episode between Hornsby and Carol. And I described them as two characters that for their respective groups were the ones that you didn't think were very, very dangerous, but were the most capable and dangerous of the crew. And they liked their understated status as, you know, they're not the visible leader, they're not the toughest, they're not the strongest, but they are probably the most cunning. And to see the two of them working together was very interesting. We get to learn a little bit more about what Hornsby's got going on. He's got this other mini community he's working with to get Poppy for the hospital. And involved with that, the Commonwealth kind of offers protection, and you see Mercer going out there doing his job. Now, the really interesting thing about this, though, is that later on we find out that Hornsby also has authority here. He uses Carol to kind of find out some information about the guy running this other group and finds out that he's not what he quite appears to be. And Hornsby uses this information, he gets this guy arrested, and he thanks Carol for continuing her efforts. And as this goes along, you know that Carol is doing this to help out Ezekiel. Two of our group who are quite keen and quite aware that there's something shady going on behind the scenes at the Commonwealth are Kelly and Connie, who are going around doing investigative work on the young man that was he disrupted, let's say, that gala ball, and he used to be the soldier. I forgot his name. I think it was Sebastian or something like that. But he is out in a hospital after what happened to him. And Kelly and Connie are doing investigations to try to find out what's going on. They're having problems at the newspaper that they work for with the editor rearranging Connie's words so it doesn't sound so bad for the people who are in charge when she's trying to bust open some of these shady things going on behind the scenes. But she goes out into the field. They're trying to find out what's going on. They're trying to appeal to Mercer, and Mercer, he hears them, but he's been here way longer than they've been. And he's just like, look, what you're trying to do, the truth that you're kind of trying to uncover, we both know it's not going to see the light of day, so you might as well knock off all this nonsense. Again, it goes back to the fact that I don't feel that Mercer is, and I know Mercer is not a villain. He kind of comes across as a villain, but I really think he's on our side. He's just so beaten down by the system that he doesn't think there's any hope of correcting it. And none of these people so far, none of our crew have showed him any reason to believe otherwise. So things go a little askew with that as we later see Mercer go back to the hospital and find out that Sebastian is gone and he was moved without him knowing, and he's the head of their military police. And even he has people that can go over his head, and this kind of snarky nurse kind of giving him crap, and Mercer's not happy about it. Later on, kind of sneaks some letter to Connie and Kelly with all the names of all the people that have gone missing. Speaking of people going missing, that is another big part about this, because Eugene, we see him in bed with Stephanie, and they're having a good time, and she's reading his novel and everything, something I can appreciate. Ladies, if you're dating somebody who is an author, there's nothing hotter than you wanting to read your man's book in bed. Something just, I don't know, this is maybe just a writer thing, but something about it that's just really hot. Anyway, it's a cute scene and they're all lovey-dovey. So this being The Walking Dead, you're like, this is going to go completely wrong. So she winds up standing up Eugene. Eugene goes back to her place, but we see that she's packing and getting the hell out of Dodge. Eugene's kind of heartbroken because Stephanie's missing. He's putting up missing person posters all over the place and trying to get anybody to help him. He noticed that this guy that was there the same night that walked out the door didn't look like somebody that should have been there. Now, Princess comes over and she tries to help out Eugene. She's trying to be a good friend, and she's got this wonderful line where she knows that he doesn't want to talk to anybody, but so she brings what she calls, I think it's souffle or something, whatever it was, food over. And then once she gets inside, Eugene looks at it and goes, "Man, this thing is empty." And Princess's line is, she's like, yeah, because when, people bring food over, you kind of have to let them in." Anyway, so Eugene uncovers his whole, Sunny in Philadelphia or whatever that meme of that guy. He's got his own board with yarn and pictures and stuff, and trying to uncover the conspiracy of what's going on. That Stephanie didn't just up and leave him. It's because she was abducted and something's going wrong, and it's this guy, this bald plumber guy, that did it. So they go on their little side adventure, sneak into the guy's apartment. Princess is like, "I really don't want to do this. I kind of like this Commonwealth place. I got like a little apartment, a little cat and stuff. I got a job. I'm cool. I don't want to get in trouble, Eugene. Don't mess this up for me." But Eugene insists, and they wind up finding out that the guy's got a lot of weapons in his place after they break into his apartment. But they're caught, and that leads to some pretty serious consequences. Hornsby comes in, and he has them sign basically a non-disclosure agreement or a disclosure agreement that they're going to agree that they said something and that Eugene did this because he was under a lot of stress, and sweep it underneath the carpet. So this is very bureaucratic. This is very, the powerful playing games and going, "Look, we'll let you slide. Just sign this thing away so you can never come after us," which is like a double play for them, because if too many of those things get out, they know that the public in general will start to distrust them. So they don't want that stuff to get out, but they're so powerful, they're leaning on these individual people to get them to agree to not let this stuff out. Eugene and Princess agree. They get basically a slap on the wrist, but Eugene's not leaving it alone. Princess tries to convince him that, "No, she left you, dude. She left you. There's no conspiracy." But Eugene knows better, and he goes and tries to find out what's going on. He then gets way deep undercover. The entire episode basically is Detective Eugene, Sherlock Eugene, this whole episode. He tracks things down. He finds this warehouse. He sneaks in. But then he's attacked, and the person that takes him down, that kicks him in the gut, knocks him to the floor, takes the wind out of him, is Stephanie. Or who you thought, and he thought, was Stephanie. Hornsby then shows up, and it's this beautiful, well, not beautiful, it's kind of gut-wrenching, but this magnificent scene between Hornsby and Eugene on the stairs in this metal warehouse, and Eugene's just pouring out how, he figured it out. Hornsby set this woman up to be with Eugene, to pretend to like him and sleep in his bed and be his girlfriend, so Hornsby could get all the information from Eugene spilling it to Stephanie. So, and Eugene figures this out, and he figures out he's been played the entire time, multiple times, and this was all a plot by Hornsby, and he threatens, "I'm going to let people know." And then for the second time, Hornsby pulls the whole, you could, but it'd be better if you didn't, and we'll still let you go if you don't. He pulled that thing again on Eugene and said, look, like, people know, but I'm doing what's best interest for my people, and at the end of the day, everybody's working out. Look, your people, your folks back over there at Alexandria are actually getting help. You guys get to live here in a nice environment. We get to know what we need to know to protect our community. So, yeah, I did something a little shady to protect my people. Wouldn't you do the same? And he does have kind of a point here, although it's to one of our crew, so we don't like him. But there is a method to Hornsby's madness. Eugene kind of concedes to this too, but it just sucks for him. It's like he can see why, but at the end of the day, it sucks. Because Eugene always, he's the nerdy guy of the crew. And nerdy guys, most often, especially if they're, a little overweight and talk a bit weird and act a bit weird and a little creepy sometimes, they have a hard time getting girlfriends. He finally got a girlfriend. He finally got love, and now it's all just an illusion. And that's really sad for Eugene. I do also like the juxtaposition they had in that shot because Hornsby is standing on several stairs higher than Eugene. And the really weird thing about this is that this is the first time I really think in The Walking Dead that I can remember off the top of my head that Eugene was outsmarted by somebody. Usually it's Eugene figuring out stuff. Of course, we all remember back at the end of season 8, after that whole thing, he was playing undercover agent and sabotaged all of the Savior's guns and basically saved our crew because they would all been shot to death if it wasn't for Eugene sabotaging all the bullets. So it's, there's so many cases where Eugene is outsmarting people. And in this case, not only did he not outsmart Hornsby, but Hornsby just played Eugene like a fiddle. And Eugene's, not only is Eugene hurt because he was played like a fiddle, because Stephanie wasn't real and he lost what he thought was real love, but also that this guy just played him like nothing, like he was an amateur. Eugene's pride is hurt in so many ways with this. Later on, though, we see Eugene is sitting around and he's burning his manuscript in the alley, and he doesn't want to, and what I thought was true, I remember saying this back in the last part, when we saw them at the ice cream truck, there was another girl that came there, and that girl was probably the real Stephanie, not the one that Eugene was with. And I was wondering how they were going to make that reveal, or if it was even true. A lot of Walking Dead fans have been suspecting that, and it turns out it's true. We get Max, who is actually the woman that stands next to Pamela Milton, who was was abducted by Sebastian at the ball. That was the real Stephanie. Now, the way that The Walking Dead did this with casting two actresses that look similar was a little hard sometimes, because I thought that Max was Stephanie, not that she was somebody different, but it didn't it was kind of weird. It was like, isn't that the same person? And they're not the same people, but they look a lot alike. Eugene, I'm surprised he didn't try it. I'm sure at some point in time, we'll find out in the next episode that he was wondering that too, but yeah, it turns out that our conspiracy theory was right about that this was not the real Stephanie, and even the real Stephanie's name is not actually Stephanie. Her name is Max, and she is an aide to Pamela Milton. All in all, I like this episode, man. It was a slower episode than some of the ones. Nothing really tremendously huge happened, but we got a lot of information in this episode, and this is really, again, focused on Detective Eugene figuring out the whole thing, using his smarts, and he thinks he's going to get to the bottom of it, and what he actually winds up getting to the bottom of is that he is nowhere near as smart as this Hornsby guy who played him bad multiple times. It's heartbreaking for Eugene, but I don't think this will be the end. I think Eugene will get his comeuppance, and I'm wondering, is he going to wind up getting together with Max eventually anyway, since now he's met the real Stephanie? Maybe they can actually have a relationship now, but we'll have to wait and see on that as the 11th season of The Walking Dead, Part 2, continues on. But I want to know what you guys thought about this episode. Let your voice be heard in the comment box below. Until next time, we'll be here for more news reviews of The Walking Dead, Season 11, and other entertainment right here on the Rantin Review Entertainment. Have a good day.